أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. Today inshallah we are going to continue learning about Lam Ta'kid. This is something that we began in the last lesson, and we had discussed how Lam Ta'kid is attached with an ism and a fail. With an ism and a harf, and now in this lesson we are going to discuss how it is attached to a present tense to make it a more emphasized form of present tense. Okay, and well, let's start our lesson. The first thing that you see over here is that I've written two lams over here. Okay, so you've got lam ta'kid and lam amr. What's the difference between these two? Simply that of haraka and of course the meaning. Okay, however their usage is the same, their method of usage is the same. So lam ta'kid is the one that carries a fatha over it, and lam amr is the one that carries a kasra under it. Okay, now for example, they help us. We have a sentence. So all right, so this is unstressed, a regular sentence. So they help us. However, if I add lam ta'kid to it, it would be translated as they will definitely help us. So what do you see? You see that the element of stress has been added, definitely, and the translation or the implication has been taken to future tense. So you won't say they definitely help us, you're going to say they will definitely help us. Okay, so these are the two important points regarding lam ta'kid, that number one, it adds the element of stress in the present tense, and secondly, it takes the meaning towards future. Okay, that doesn't remain in present tense, but it is actually your future tense. Okay, now how you're going to do that, you'll learn that in this lesson in a couple of minutes. Okay, but before that, let's see what lam amr is all about. I told you that the difference between these two lams is that of haraka and the meaning. Okay, however their usage, their process of, or the procedure of using them is the same. That's why I decided to include lam amr in this very lesson. Okay, now lam amr carries a kasra under it, as you can see, and let's go back to our standard example or a regular sentence, that they help us. However, if you add lam amr to it, it would be translated as they must help us. Okay, or you could say they should help us. Okay, but it becomes a way more emphasized statement or sentence when you add lam amr to it. Okay, so they must help us. Now what do you observe here? You observe that there is no element of future tense in it. Okay, it's only present, or it's more of a, not even a present, it's more of a sentence where you wish for things. Okay, so it's more of a tamannaya kind of thing. Tamanna simply means that you wish for something or you hope for something. Okay, so this is what lam amr is all about. Now once again, I have discussed this lam amr thing in this stressed present tense, the one with lam ta'kid, because the way you use lam amr and lam ta'kid is similar, or rather the same. Okay, so let's proceed with the lam ta'kid thing. Now the first thing that we should know is that there are two intensities of stress. It could either be a stress of moderate degree or an extreme degree. Okay, and how are you going to find that out? With the help of the suffix. And well, as you can see, the suffix is noon. Okay, if the haraka, or if the sign on the noon is sakoon, then it is the moderate degree of stress. But if you find a tashdid with either a fatha or a kasra on the noon, then that would mean that it is an intense kind of stress. Okay, so this is what you need to know. Now what you call this in Arabic is simply noon saqil or noon asqal. Asqal is the one with tashdid and saqil is the one with sakoon. Okay, so this is what you need to know about it. You don't need to remember these names, Saqil and Asqal. Simply know what, or simply try and identify these patterns whenever you are reciting. Okay, so if you find the presence of Lam Takid or Lam Amr, and then following that you find a Fail Muzare, and then following that you find either a noon, either with a sukoon or a tashdid, then of course that means that there's a stress in it, and you have to then decide whether it was moderate or an intense kind of, or an extreme kind of stress. Okay, and that is where the harakah or the sign on the noon comes up. Okay, all right. The next thing that you should know is about the two add-ons that we're going to learn for putting stress in the present tense. So, and of course, we have discussed both of them very briefly already. So you've got the prefix of either lam takid or lam amr. Okay, then you've got the suffix of either noon saqil or noon asqal. Okay, so you've got these two add-ons that you must add to the fi'l muzare in order to put stress in it. Next is the process of making the fi'l muzare light. Okay, so lam takid and lam amr can only be added to a field that, or to a field muzari that has been made light. Now I know you guys have already done the light isms back in section B, however fail can also be made light. Okay, and that is what we're going to learn in the next few minutes, and then we're going to proceed with some examples of stressed present tense with lam takid. Okay, so let's see what lightening the fi'l muzari is all about. Okay, so you've got this table that you must be familiar with, and what do you see here? You see that it's all about fi'l muzari, and you of course can see the translations written right under the Arabic words, and then you are able to see that I have identified or highlighted the two add-ons. So one of the add-on is a prefix, and the other one in red is a suffix. Okay, now each of these are going to play their roles in telling us about the file or the doer. Okay, so let's see. Now, since you have already learned this table, and I have taught this table and all the important points regarding it in a very elaborated manner already in this very section, I would not go into details. In those details, actually, I would simply discuss this table in regards to what is important for the process of making a fail light. Okay, so let's begin. The first thing that I would want to elaborate on is the fact that all of these words are actually divided into 5 groups, and that is on the basis of their rhyme. Okay, so the ones that sound similar are grouped in one group. So as you can see, yansuru, tansuru, another tansuru. Tansurina isn't included in it. Why? Because it doesn't rhyme with tansuru. Okay, so yansuru, tansuru, tansuru. Then you've got ansuru and then nansuru. They rhyme with each other, therefore they are part of one group, the yansuru group. Okay, then next we have the second group. Second group is that of yansurani. Then you've got tansurani that rhymes with it, another tansurani that rhymes with it, another tansurani that rhymes with it. Okay, so these 4 form a separate group, the yansurani group. All right, then next we have the group of yansuruna and tansuruna. They are the ones that rhyme with each other. Okay, so they form the third group. All right, then next we have the fourth group of Yansurna and Tansurna. As you can see, they rhyme with each other, therefore they have been grouped together. Okay, so Yansurna and Tansurna, they form the fourth group. And then finally, we are left with just one pattern, that is of Anti. Okay, and since you cannot see any other word that rhymes with Tansurina, this thing over here forms a group by itself. Okay, so it doesn't have any other members, it's only tansurina. Tansurina is alone. Okay, and well, these were the 5 groups. So just to recap it all, we have got 5 groups based on the rhyme or the sound of all of those. Okay, so all those that rhyme with each other and they sound similar to each other, they have been grouped in a separate category or a group. Okay, so yansuru, tansuru, tansuru, ansuru, nansuru. Then you've got the second group of yansurani and tansurani. Then you've got yansuruna, tansuruna, and then yansurna, tansurna, and then finally the group of tansurina. Okay, now based on this grouping, we are going to see how each of these groups can be made light. Okay, this is our next step. So you can see the patterns over here. All the 5 groups are over here. You can see yaf'alu group, yaf'aluna group, yaf'alani, yaf'alna, and then taf'alina. Now you have to see how you can make it light. And while we are on the subject of light, it can either be light or the lightest. Okay, for lam ta'kid we need this version. Okay, now the versions where we are going to use the lightest form of the verbs, we are going to study those situations in the next section, inshallah. Okay, and over here for lam ta'kid and lam amr, we're going to see how we can make these patterns light, the primary or the first degree light. Okay, so let's see. First of all, we have the group of taf'alina. Now, if you remember back in the ism section where I taught you how to lighten an ism, I told you that you have to check out the ending noon sound from each of the ism. So if you've got the noon in the form of a suffix, you chuck that suffix out, or you chuck that noon of the suffix out. Okay, similarly, if you've got the tanween, you simply make it a single harakat and you remove the ending na sound. Okay, the same thing applies here. So if you've got taf'alina, to make it light, you're going to remove this blue part, and that is the noon. It is going to result in taf'ali. Okay, then you've got yaf'alani. Same thing happens here. You're going to remove this noon of the suffix and it becomes yaf'ala. Okay, then yaf'ala with a longer la sound. Okay, then you've got yaf'aluna. What do? You remove this noon and it becomes yaf'alu. Okay, so these are the light forms. Now yaf'alna, you do not remove this noon in yaf'alna group, so it remains yaf'alna and it remains taf'alna. Okay, no changes happen in yaf'alna group. Okay, this is something important. So as you can see, there is no change in the yaf'alna group, and therefore the light version of this yaf'alna is also yaf'alna. Okay, and similarly the lightest version is also yaf'alna. Okay, so and the lightest versions of these 4 groups remains the same. Okay, so you had yaf'aluna as a regular verb and it became light and it became lightest, and over here you can see that both the words are yaf'alu. Similarly, yaf'alani became yaf'ala for light and then it remains yaf'ala for the lightest. Similarly, you've got yaf'alna, it remained yaf'alna for light and it remains light yaf'alna for the lightest version. Then you've got taf'alina pattern, the pattern of taf'alina for regular pattern, it became light as taf'ali and then it remains taf'ali in the lightest version. Now let's come to yaf'alu group. As you can see, there is no noon over here, so you play around with its harakah on the last letter. Okay, so the last letter over here, the last root letter lam, has the harakah of dhamma. Okay, so you play around with it. The first thing that you do is that you convert it into fatha, so the light version would have fatha on it. Okay, so yaf'alu would become yaf'ala. Then the lightest version would be when that fatha gets replaced with a sakoon, as you can see over here. Okay, so yaf'al, so the yaf'alu group, all the yaf'alu, taf'alu, af'alu, naf'alu, all these yaf'alu members, they first lose their dhamma to fatha and on the last letter, and they become light, and then this fatha gets lost by or replaced by a sukoon for their lightest form. Okay, so this is something that you must know, and you must absolutely know, so that you can proceed seamlessly when it comes to using lam ta'kid. Okay, and we are going to touch on this subject again in the next section, inshallah, because well, there are many situations where the fi'l is made light and then the lightest. Okay, so know this thing inside and out. I hope that this thing is clear, so let's proceed to the steps that are required for making the or for putting the stress in a present tense. So you've got the first step of making the fi'l mudari light. This is something that we have just discussed. Okay, and then the second step is that you attach it with the two add-ons. The first add-on is that of a prefix. That prefix is of course the lam ta'kid, and the second add-on is that of a suffix, and that is either nun shadda or nun asqal or nun with sakoon. So this one represents the moderate degree of stress, and this one represents the extreme degree of stress. Okay, so that's all that you have to do. Okay, so the way to remember this is simply make the mudari light and then stick it tight with the add-ons. That's all you have to do. Okay, now we need to see how we can put a moderate degree of stress and how we can put an extreme degree of stress. All right, so let's see. The first thing, as you can see, is that the patterns have been mentioned in the center, and okay, yeah, and the next thing that you can see is that you've got the intense stress right over here, and you've got lam ta'kid as a first add-on in the prefix. Then you've got the second add-on of noon with tashdid as a suffix, and the middle part of the word is going to represent the fi'l mudari that has been made light. Okay, so that's what. Now let's begin. You've got yaf'alu. Okay, what was the light form of yaf'alu? Remember, there isn't any noon over here, so you are going to play around with the haraka of the last letter, and that here is dhamma. So in order to make it light, this dhamma is going to be replaced with a fatha, right? So it's become yaf'ala, and then you can add this yaf'ala with the add-ons, so it becomes la yaf'alanna, right? So la yaf'alanna, once again, la yaf'alanna, and this depicts, or this shows an intense degree of stress. What if this was naf'alu? Then you would light that naf'alu to naf'ala, and then that naf'ala would be interspersed or attached with the lam ta'kid and noon tashdid. So it would become la naf'alanna, right? What if this was alif or hamza over here? It was af'alu. Then you are going to make af'alu light, and then it's going to become af'ala, all right? And then that af'ala is going to be added to this la af'alanna. Okay, so that's how you are going to make the derivatives for yaf'alu group. Once again, since there is no noon in yaf'alu, we are going to play around, or we are going to change the haraka of the last letter. Over here it is dhamma, so it's going to become fatha, and that fatha is then going to determine which group it is. Okay, so you've got yaf'ala, all right, so it's gonna become la yaf'alanna. Similarly, la taf'alanna for taf'alu, then la taf'alanna again, all right, and then la af'alanna, and then la naf'alanna. Okay, that most definitely all of us will surely do it. Okay, next you've got yaf'aluna. Now how are you going to make it light? by simply removing this noon. It becomes yaf'alu, right? And therefore you're going to add this yaf'alu to this equation. So what does it become? It becomes yaf'aluna, right? At least that's what you should think that it should become. That it should become yaf'aluna, like this. Luna. Alright, that's what you were expecting it to become. Yaf'aluna. However, don't you think that saying la yaf'aluna is a bit too much of a disruption in the smooth flow of speech? I hope you are agreeing with me, and that's the reason this wow also gets removed, omitted. Okay, so that's the reason it becomes la yaf'alunna. So instead of la yaf'alunna, it becomes la yaf'alunna. Okay, this is important. So now I would like to bring into your observation or notice a very subtle point that is very important to know. As you can see, when you were attaching this yaf'alu group to this pattern, we had simply made this yaf'alu light, and then it had become yaf'ala, right? And then that yaf'ala had been added to this pattern, and it became la yaf'alanna, right? Over here, so this last root letter had a fatha to it. Then next we had yaf'aluna. We made it light and it became yaf'alu, and then we added it to the this scenario, to this pattern, and it became yaf'aluna. However, we wanted to make it a bit easier to pronounce. Okay, so we removed this wow as well, and it became la yaf'alunna, much easier to say, right? Over here you have dhamma on the last root letter. Okay, this haraka is going to differentiate la yaf'alanna from la yaf'alunna. Okay, so you can very easily guess if it's the member of a yaf'alu group or yaf'aluna group. Okay, so that's what you have to do. I'm going to elaborate this point with the help of examples shortly, but understand this point very well. Okay, next you've got yaf'alani. Simply remove this noon of the suffix, and then you add the yaf'ala to this scenario or to this pattern. It becomes la yaf'alani. Okay, now as I said that there are some pre-made rules, and this are actually exceptions. So this omission of alif isn't one of them, or is one of them. Okay, so this alif is not going to be omitted just because it is too much to say la yaf'alani. Well, you cannot omit this alif. Okay, why? Because the Arabs said so. That's all. Their language, their rules. Okay, so I hope that you can now understand this la yaf'alani thing too. Quite easy, isn't it? Next, you've got the light version of yaf'alna as yaf'alna. Okay, so it gets added to the suffix and it becomes la yaf'alnani. Okay, so la yaf'alna, this is the pattern itself, or the fi'l muzari itself, and then ani gets added here as well as here. Okay, so la yaf'alani and then la yaf'alnani. Okay, that's what. Next and finally we have taf'alina. We are going to make it light by removing this noon. It becomes taf'ali, and then we add it to the suffix and the prefix of lam ta'kid and noon asqal. It becomes la taf'alina. However, as we had discussed in this example, that it's a bit too much for the Arabs to say la taf'alina, we are going to observe that this ya with sukoon has also been omitted, and it becomes only la taf'alinna. Once again, much easier to vocalize. Okay, so I hope that this thing is clear to you, because it takes a bit of extra attention to understand these concepts, and then once you have understood these concepts, it becomes really easy to apply them. Okay, so yaf'alu becomes light and it becomes yaf'ala, and that yaf'ala becomes la yaf'alanna. Yaf'aluna becomes light and becomes yaf'alu. However, it is too much for the Arabs to say yaf'aluna, therefore that wow also gets omitted and it becomes la yaf'alunna, right? And then yaf'alani, then yaf'alnani, similarly la taf'alinna. Okay, so as you can see, the haraka of the letter right before this suffix is going to determine who the doer is. Okay, so over here, if it is fatha, it's going to be the member of yaf'alu group. If it is dhamma, it's going to be the member of yaf'aluna group. If you see a kasra right before this noon, the suffix of noon, then it's going to be taf'alina. Okay, now the same thing happens in the moderate stress. You've got la and then lam ta'kid, alright, then you've got the fi'l muzari, the lightened form of fi'l muzari, and then you've got noon sakoon. Okay, now let's see what's happening here. Yaf'alu lightens up to yaf'ala, right, and then you add this yaf'ala to this pattern, it becomes la yaf'alan, right, la yaf'alan, as you can see. Next you've got yaf'aluna, you lighten it up, it becomes yaf'alu, then you add this yaf'alu to this pattern and it becomes la yaf'alun. However, once again, it is too much for the Arab to say that because they feel that their smooth flow of speech is being disrupted. So they remove this waw as well and it becomes la yaf'alun. Okay, the same thing that we studied for intense stress. Next, we've got taf'alina. You lighten it up, it becomes taf'ali, and then you add it to this pattern and it becomes la taf'alin. However, once again, smooth flow of speech gets disrupted, so this ya also gets omitted and it becomes la taf'alin. Okay, la taf'alin. So that's what. I hope that you have now understood the difference between la yaf'alan, la yaf'alun, and la taf'alin. Okay, remember these things, they are really important. Okay, what you do see is that there are no derivatives for the musanna as well as the yaf'alna group. Okay, groups. So these two are, not formed for the moderate stress, so it's a good news because it's one less thing to worry about. However, that brings us to another point that isn't exactly too much of an importance when it comes to the grammar point of view. However, this is something that is very frequently found in the script, or simply how you write the Quran, or how you write the Arabic. So that is when it becomes relevant. Okay, so as you can see that you have the ending sounds of lan, lun, and lin over here. Okay, so what happens is that when the Quran Pak gets written, the script gives this sound or captures this sound or writes this sound as tanween. Okay, so where we had la yaf'alan, they replace this portion with a nasab tanween. Similarly, la yaf'alun, they captured this part as la yaf'alun with tanween. Similarly with tanween of kasra. Okay, la taf'alin, it doesn't mean that it has become a noun. Okay, so this is not the nasab form, this is not the rafa form, and this is not the jar form. It is simply how these endings have been captured while writing Arabic. Okay, so this is all that it matters. Writing it this way does not mean that it has been converted into a noun. So I hope that this is clear. So what have we discussed up till now? So far we discussed that there are two intensities of stress. Number one, Number two, we had a look at the two add-ons, the prefix and the suffix. So prefix is lam ta'kid and suffix is the noon, either with a sukoon or a tashdid. Then we saw that, or we discussed how we can make the fail muzari light. Okay, and for that purpose we had divided all these patterns into 5 groups based on how similar they sound to each other, and then we made them light. Okay, so once we made them light, either by replacing the haraka on the last letter or by removing the na sound, we then discussed the two steps for construction of this formation. Okay, so what were the two steps? Make light and stick tight. Okay, and then based on that we came up with these two patterns, or these two patterns, the one with moderate stress and the one with an intense stress. So we had the layaf alun or layaf alan and layaf lataf alin things, patterns, derivatives. Okay, and then we had the ones with intense stress. And then here we discussed various things, whether it's going to be layaf alanna or layaf alunna or layaf lataf alinna. Similarly, how the haraka of the last root letter is going to determine which group it belongs to. So if it is layaf alanna, it's yafalu. If it is layaf alunna, it would be yafaluna group. Okay, similarly taf'alina would be taf'alina group. Okay, now let's come to examples. Now here what I have done is that I have given you a little exercise. Okay, so you've got the actual pattern over here. Okay, then first you're going to convert this pattern into moderate stress. Okay, and you're going to determine the haraka of the last root letter. Okay, so you've got yansuru, the regular pattern, then you're going to make it light, it's going to become yansura, and then you're going to attach this yansura to the lam ta'kid and the suffix of noon. Okay, both here as well as here. Okay, and you're going to determine the haraka of the last root letter, whether it's going to be fatha or dhamma or kasra. Okay, so, and this thing follows for all of these patterns. Okay, you have done it for the fail or for the word of fa'ala. Now it's time for nasara yansuru. Okay, so pause the screen, solve this entire thing, and then you can watch, or you can check your answers from the next screen. Pause it now and solve this exercise. Okay, now here are the answers. You can match those with whatever you had written, and as you can see, it's layan suranna. I'm sorry, layan suran, and then layan suranna. Okay, then you've got layan surun. Why? Because this wow, first of all, this noon got cancelled or omitted, then this wow got omitted, and it became layan surun or layan surunna. Similarly, tansurina first became light with tansuri, right? And then it was too much for the Arabs to say tansurina, therefore we have, or they rather omitted this ya as well, so it became latansurin and latansurinna. Okay, so I hope that all of your answers are correct. Now let's come to the real examples. Now what I want you to determine is whether it is lam ta'kid or lam amr. Okay, so remember lam ta'kid is the one with fatha and lam amr is the one with kasra. Then you're going to determine, most importantly, that which rafa pronoun is being talked about. Okay, let's see. Our first example is latufsidunna. Now latufsidunna, what do you see? If you remove these two add-ons, you can see that only tufsidu is left. Now tufsidu, since it is dhamma on the last root letter, it means that this belongs to the group of yaf'aluna, right? Or yufsiduna. Okay, now so it is your jama form. It's either going to be antum or it's going to be hum. Now you have to determine whether it's antum or hum. So you look at the first add-on, and that is tu over here. So that means that it is antum. all of you will most definitely stir unrest or trouble. Okay, so this is how you are going to practice it in the Musaf. That first of all, you come across this word, so and you identify this lam ta'kid and then this noon with noon asqal. Okay, so you know that this is the stressed form. What's the next step? You simply remove or omit these two add-ons and you see the haraka on the last root letter. That is dhamma. Okay, if it is dhamma, then there are only two possibilities. It's either going to be antum or it's going to be hum. Which one of those is it? You're going to decide by looking at the looking at the letter or the add-on of fi'l muzari. Okay, so if it is the, it means it is tufsiduna or simply antum. Okay, but if it were yufsidu, then it would be hum yufsiduna. Okay, so in this case here it is once again dhamma, so that means it's either antum or hum. So it's, and how are you going to decide if it is antum or hum? You check out the add-on for fi'l muzari, the prefix one, and you see that this is tufsidu, so it is antum. Okay, and that is our answer, antum. Okay, now apply the same methodology that I have just told you and solve the next few words. The next word is lanasjudanna. Really easy. Pause the screen, work this out, and then I'll tell you what the answer is. Alright, so I hope that you said nahnu. Why? Because you can see a fatha over here, and then this is nasjudu. So nahnu nasjudu. It is not yasjudu or tasjudu or asjudu, right? It is nasjudu. So this is for nahnu. Okay, so all of us will most definitely prostrate. Nahnu. Okay, next is la ya'lamanna. Pause the screen and tell me what is this, what rafa pronoun is being talked about. I hope that you said huwa. Why? Because first of all, the last root letter carries a fatha, and after you have decided that this is a yafalu group, you decide to check the first add-on of the fi'l muzari, and that over here is ya, and there is only one pattern for ya, that is huwa ya'lamu. Okay, so that is your answer, huwa. Okay, he will most definitely know. Next, you've got la tadkhulani. Okay, I don't think that I need to spell it out for you guys, because once again you've got ani over here, right? So typical musanna, and it's either going to be the huma, or I mean the yadkhulani or the tadkhulani. Now which one is it? This is actually tadkhulani, so it's either going to be the feminine huma or the two antumas. Okay, so once again it's a context that's going to tell us that. Okay, next you've got la tadkhulnani. Once again, much easier than all the examples that we have done before, because it speaks out for itself. So you've got, it is actually your yaf'alna group. Okay, so tadkhulnani. Over here you can see that this is either going to be yaf'alna or taf'alna. So you go back to the first add-on for the muzari and you see that this is the, so it means that this is taf'alna. So it is the rafa pattern being talked about here is antunna. Okay, antunna. Next you've got litarhamanna. Once okay, the first thing that you notice is that this is li and not la, so this is lami amr. Okay, the second thing is that this is intense stress because of noon with tashdid. The third thing is that the third root letter carries a fatha. Okay, it is tarhamanna. Okay, so it is of course one of the yafalu people. So it's either going to be one of the yafalu or tafalu or afalu or what, nafalu. Okay, so you have to determine that. For that you check out the first add-on of the fi'l mudari, and that comes out to be ta. Now there are two possibilities for ta. It's either going to be tarhama or tarhamu for anta, or tarhamu for hiya. So context is going to tell you that. Okay. All right. So it's either going to be hiya or anta. Yeah, anta. Now this is an ayah from the Quran, and I'm going to leave this one for you. Okay, I'm not going to explain it because all of these things have been color coded, and it represents everything that I have done with you guys so far. The only thing that I'm going to tell you is that the pronouns have been attached after the suffix of noon. Okay, so you've got wa, which means and, then you've got la, which is lam ta'kid, and then that la is actually joined with alif, or rather hamza. Okay, then you've got your fi'l muzari part, and then you've got your suffix of noon, and that is followed by the pronoun. Okay, so it's wala uzillannahum, wala umanniyannahum. Okay, so it's not wala, it's wala. Okay, now this is something that the shaitan has said for all of us. Okay, and it's really scary because all of it is very, very, very true to the very core of it. So I'm going to leave this entire part to you guys to translate and understand rather. Okay, and reflect on it too. So with this, I'm going to take your leave. We are done with our stressed present tense. I know this lecture has become a bit longer one, but all of the things that we have discussed here are really important, and they're rather easy, so it doesn't really matter as long as you have understood all these things. Okay, don't fidget at the length of this lecture. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lecture. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al Hakim. Allah Hafiz.